I never thought in a million years that I would be in a pageant, let alone represent Canada.
Julie Vu is a trans woman. She represented Canada in the Miss International Queen pageant in 2019. She's been a model for Sephora and a contestant on Big Brother Canada.
To see someone like me, a transgender Asian woman, be on billboards all across Canada was something I never thought would ever happen.
Adrienne Smith is a human rights activist and a social justice lawyer and says things have changed in recent years.
10 years ago, I started talking about transgender rights, and people would come up to me quietly afterwards and say, I have a trans person in my life, or my grandchild is trans. And now that happens out in the open, and people are being braver.
During Trans Awareness Week, Vu is remembering her journey and says her life wasn't always this glamorous. At one time, she wanted to give up.
Before my transition from male to female, I felt trapped. I felt stuck. I felt like there was no way out. There was no hope. And it was a pretty dark place.
She says she didn't have full support from her family, and that made it hard to be herself.
My parents are very old school, traditional Vietnamese family from Vietnam, so it was harder for them to wrap their head around the idea of being transgender. It took some time for them to get used to the new me, but I've always been the same person.
As a child, Vu felt like she couldn't express herself, but when she discovered makeup, it became a way to express how she felt in the inside.
It was a little bit scary because I wasn't allowed to play with makeup because I wanted to. All my girlfriends could. And so when I did and I started transitioning, it was a whole new world to me, but I felt like the world that I needed to be in.
And now she started her own makeup line and tries to be a voice for people who haven't found their own.
To normalize the queer community, I feel like we need to start showing up and start talking about it. It's not an overnight thing. We still have to fight every single day for our rights, for equality. I feel like sometimes we take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back.
There's a role to play for folks who aren't trans to really stand up for our community. The generation of trans people who are growing up now have really a better opportunity and some prospects in a way that weren't available to my generation, and certainly the one that came before me. Keep loving the trans people in your lives, especially if they're young ones, because there's such a great opportunity for us to give people the potential for a better life.
For anyone who is working through their gender identity and feels isolated, Vu has this message.
You are actually not alone. There are people out there who are just like you and me. There's a community out there. Search for those communities, and we're here to help you with open doors.
In Vancouver, Angela Bauer, City News.